formally, good afternoon. We're now ready to begin. Once I've asked the live broadcast start, we will pause for 10 seconds. Can you please start the live broadcast? I've got a thumbs up from there. Okay. Before we go any further, can I just have a minute's silence for Councillor Maureen Dobson, please? She was on this committee for more years than anyone was scared to remember. And she was not only a stalwart on the committee, her contribution was immense. Nothing to do with party politics or anything like that. I'm glad you're nodding, Helen. Thank you. So, just a minute's silence, if you wouldn't be, if you'd be so kind. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Now, I know one or two people would like to say something, which is absolutely fine, because the only time we've had a chance so far, only opportunity, sorry, we've had so far to say something not about Maureen was a policy committee, not a full council. So I'm very happy if anyone who wants to say something this afternoon. Jono.
Chairman, thank you very much. Would you like me to stand, or am I all right to sit?
You say where you are, Jono.
Thank you very much. Maureen was a very interesting character. I knew Maureen for 10 years. She was my county councillor when I lived in Coddington. I was unlucky enough to run against her in the last county council election where I did lose against her. And Maureen was the only person, and if any of you ever knew, any time I ever spoke in this chamber, Maureen would roll her eyes and tut every time I spoke, and then she would wait for me to finish, she would then talk, and she would start with the words, Jonathan. Now, the only other person who calls me Jonathan is my mum, but I would never ever tell Maureen off, because if I did, I'd get it back 10 times as much. I was very privileged to have been able to work with Maureen. I was actually quite upset that I never got to work with her when she was a Conservative, because I was told the amount of knowledge she has was next to none. Me and Maureen used to fall out a lot. I was the district councillor who was tasked to try and unseat her on many occasions, so I was very mischievous around Maureen, and she used to always tell me that I was. But Maureen was a lovely lady, and she would now be sat over there rolling her eyes and tutting at me and telling me to be quiet. So I will be quiet on that one. She will be greatly missed by many people in this chamber, but it was an absolute privilege to have known her. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Beautifully put, John. Thank you ever so much. Thank you. Helen.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I didn't get to work with Maureen as long as a lot of people in here did. In fact, I think Personnel Committee was the only committee that we were actually on together. But Maureen did teach me quite a lot when I first started on Personnel Committee last term. And she spoke on most things. She was very knowledgeable about it. It was her passion. And it is going to be very strange to not have Maureen in the Personnel Committee meetings, putting her points of view across. And Maureen was a Conservative, but she never showed that. She never let it interfere. She always wanted to take politics out of it. She wasn't bothered about the party political stuff, and she just wanted to put the residents of Nottinghamshire first. And that's something that I think we should all honour Maureen for. And thank you, Chair, for allowing us to address the committee today.
My pleasure, Helen. Thank you for those lovely words. Thank you. Thank you very much. In that case, item 1, minutes of the last meeting on the 3rd of November. Slightly bit of break with protocol, because it's the only opportunity I get of saying something here, which is on item 4, just basically a paragraph 2. It's okay. I had a virtual meeting recently with the British Deaf Association, together with Tarek Singh, our Equalities Officer. And suffice to say, the British Deaf Association have given us food for thought. There are things we could do better as a council to support the deaf community, and we will be. Tarek has made an action list. Tarek and myself will be speaking to Marie Rowney and the customer service team on Tuesday, because we want to do the very best we possibly can for the deaf community. So this isn't a box-ticking exercise. We really are committed to this. Thank you for your indulgence. Are you happy for me to sign the minutes off now? Thank you. Item 2, then, apologies for absence.
We've received two apologies for absence, and that is Councillor Henry and Councillor Place. Councillor Allen is standing in for Councillor Henry, and Councillor Gowland is standing in for Councillor Place for this meeting only.
Chairman, apologies for Councillor Jackson.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Pauline, and welcome, Penny. Thank you for stepping in. Item 3, declarations of interest. Do any members or officers present here have any disclosable pecuniary interest to declare? Do any members or officers present here have any private interest, pecuniary or non-pecuniary, to declare? Take that as a no. In that case, we move to item 4, Nottingham County Council's Skill Development and Employment Opportunity Strategy. I'll introduce the report and formally move the recommendations on page 13 of the agenda pack. Do I have a seconder?
I was second, Chairman, reserve the right to speak.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Jill, may I please ask you to present the report?
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. I'm delighted to bring forward this report today around the County Council's draft Skills Development and Employment Opportunities Strategy. We're seeking your approval today to approve the strategy and the associated resource requirements to enable the effective delivery of the identified actions and to deliver the objectives set out in the new council plan. As you will all be aware, the council plan was approved at full council on the 25th of November, which sets out the strategic vision for the future of Nottinghamshire and this local authority. It is an ambitious 10-year vision for a healthier, prosperous and greener future for everyone. It's recognised that having meaningful work to do that pays a living wage, sustainable employment is essential for individuals' health and well-being. Certainly creating employment opportunities, which the County Council as the largest employer locally continues to do, contributes to the overall economic growth and prosperity of our communities. We will be bringing a new people strategy to this committee in January, which will underpin the ambitions set out in the council plan and sets out resource requirements and our ambitions in the human resources required to deliver on that plan. However, today's report and the associated strategy is a key component of that. We have a number of traineeships, development opportunities, work experience opportunities, both centrally, internally and externally. There are colleagues working across the council in a range of services. I works in adult social care and health, the attainment advisors supporting care leavers, colleagues in economic growth and development working externally with SMEs. What we haven't had today is a coordinating function to draw together the range of activity, both internally and externally, about all these trainee schemes. And this is what the intention and the approach of this strategy seeks to deliver. We have to bear in mind as well the current context. It would be wrong to ignore the situation that the COVID pandemic has created. So we know there are more vacancies across the whole of the United Kingdom than there has been for any number of years. We also know that for certain groups of society, there remains barriers to employment. And we also know that the council has a growing demand for certain skills and expertise, which currently we cannot recruit to. So what we need to do is to have a joined-up approach to ensure that, if not today and the immediate future, we have a plan in place to grow those skills, to create development opportunities and to provide people coming forward to take up those opportunities with the real prospect of permanent sustainable employment with the council or with its partner organisations. However, it would be wrong to ignore the fact that colleagues joining the council in the current times have in certain circumstances missed out on the support and the learning they would get if they were sitting in close contact with their colleagues. We also recognise that managers are entirely focused on the response to the COVID pandemic, and that is, having thought we were going into recovery in the autumn time, clearly with the new variant and the current situation, we don't want to place additional burdens on managers in the additional resource required to support apprenticeships and trainee schemes and work experience. However, that's not to say that we don't do anything. Clearly we can, and clearly we have, because we have currently got 341 apprentices. Many organisations have halted or reduced significantly their trainee programmes. We think this would be short-sighted and isn't something to do. What the strategy will enable us to do is to make a step change in terms of improvement to grow and develop those schemes and to ensure that they do lead to genuine sustainable employment. So we're getting a return on the investment that we place in each and every one of those individuals, be they a supported intern, be they an apprentice, be they a graduate trainee, or any one of the other range of opportunities we hope to get. One of the things that we've been less good at doing, it has to be said, and it was something that Councillor Jackson highlighted 2 meetings ago, is he asked the question, what do we do to keep in touch with people coming forward for work experience? And although we do have relationships with local schools, and we do have relationships with our local universities, what we want to do is to develop a mentoring programme where school-age children coming forward for work experience have the opportunity to have continued contact with a member of the county council, an officer of the county council, so that if they've got any questions, if they want to know what opportunities, might be 2 years down the line, but if we've got a need, A, we're keeping communicating with schools, but there'll be an individual line of communication for that young person as well. So we know this month the Office of National Statistics has reported that there's been over 1.22 million vacancies posted across the United Kingdom. So having a strategy in place which enables us to grow talent and retain talent is increasingly important. As I said, we know that for some, job prospects have diminished over time, and what we want to do is to have not just a programme for young people, not just a programme for disadvantaged groups, but a programme that covers all ages, anyone coming forward for a development opportunity, be they a new employee or an existing employee who wants to grow and develop their careers. We will use the apprenticeship money to do that. And colleagues will see in other strategies, other approaches, certainly in children's social care, the use of social work apprentices is going to be of increasing importance over time. As I mentioned, we know there's recruitment issues, and that's one of the reasons why we have developed this strategy. It cannot be seen in isolation, though. There are a number of other strategies that interlink with this. So, employee health and well-being, for example. We know if we're bringing people into our workforce, we've got to look after them. We've got to make them feel valued and special. And I think previous committee, we spoke about recognition and reward and how we would develop new schemes so that people did have some physical emblem of being valued by their employer. So over time, the strategy will develop a range of specific action plans around each of the individual trainee programmes. The graduate trainee scheme is well developed, and members at last committee approved its continuing for next year. Excuse me. We want to adopt a similar approach so that we can track candidates throughout their traineeship into employment, be that with the council, be that with a partner organisation, or be that with any other employer within Nottinghamshire, because although people may leave us for a time, who's to say at a point in the future they won't come back in more senior roles, and therefore we will see a return on our investment. And whatever, if they stay living locally, we retain their knowledge and skills and their salary spending within the local economy. So there's a whole approach here that we're trying to develop. It's equally important to have a variety of opportunities, because whilst we do have our high-flying graduates, and they are very possibly the leaders of the future, it's equally important to have a range of opportunities for people who have different skills, different knowledge, different experience and different abilities. And that's why we've included things like the supported intern programme into this strategy. We think it's really important that we work with partner organisations. So we work closely with Inspire, we work with Futures, but also Reed, who are an external partner whereby we get our contingent workforce, our agency workforce, and part of the contract we have with them is a social value element, and what they're working with us at the moment is supporting people to get work ready. So that's people who may be out of employment for a period of time to ensure they've got some updated interview skills training. They're aware of what to expect when they go into a workplace, because the world of work has changed quite significantly over recent years. In paragraph 24 of the report, it touches on the resource required. Now, we do have colleagues working on this agenda at the moment, and as I mentioned, there are other colleagues across all the departments involved in skills development and employment. But what we think the whole strategy would benefit from is some dedicated resource and focus, such as there is with graduate trainees, to make that step change I mentioned earlier in this presentation. We're not looking for significant resource. We're looking to use some of our existing resource to refocus an existing post, and also to include another Band C post and have an apprentice. We think this is really important to model the behaviour that we're expecting of managers. So I can say quite successfully within the HR and workforce and organisational development team, we have entry-level apprentices doing their professional qualification, but we've also got people doing high-level apprenticeships, which will give them a postgraduate qualification, because we think that is a way, A, to use the money in the levy to get people professionally qualified, but it also models the expectation we have of other service managers that they will consider taking on apprentices as a means of resourcing at entry level and beyond. The reason for the recommendation is we want to build on our brand. We talk a lot in this committee of wanting to be and aspiring to be an employer of choice. And all the activity we bring forward to this committee is seeking to demonstrate how we do act as an employer of choice. In terms of having a whole approach from work experience, continuing to maintain contact throughout people's school years, into traineeships and thus into permanent employment, we think if we're successful, that will have a significant impact on the resourcing requirements of the council and indeed the economic prosperity of our communities. So before I get into the recommendations, I'll pause for any questions.
Thank you. John.
Chairman, thank you very much. I found something out today, so I'm going to try and manoeuvre that into a question. And I'm going to be honest. So I found out today that if somebody who works, who is what we used to call in the TA or in the military, but works part-time in the military, in the reserves, and you are a nurse and you work for the NHS, you will not be called up. But if you are a nurse and you work for the county council, you could be called up. Are we finding that that is impacting, one, us being able to do resources and being able to do our jobs? And it's hard to recruit somebody when you know you might only be losing them for a certain period of time. And are we finding that some of those individuals may miss out on skills and being able to get things from this? Or are we finding that it's not really affecting us?
I've worked for this council for 17 years and I've never been approached about releasing somebody to go back. I previously worked in the civil service and I was probably approached 3 times in a similar period of time around the first Iraq War, I would suggest. However, we are a gold standard Armed Forces Covenant employer and we are here to support our Armed Forces colleagues, and therefore I don't think it's any kind of barrier to employment. In fact, we've opened up our jobs to the Armed Forces redeployment portal as another means of seeking to resource jobs that we struggle to fill at the moment. Unfortunately, the Armed Forces don't have lots of social workers. They've got lots of people involved in logistics, though, and we can try and work together to try and direct Armed Forces personnel into areas where there might be demand for their skills.
Yeah, just come back on that one. And that's how I found myself working for the County Council. I believe I was one of the first injured servicemen to come in to work for the County Council BAM Intervention Project for 18 months. So I do know that's there. I just wanted to hear you say it. So thank you very much.
Very kindly manoeuvred there, John, may I say. Helen.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jill. I just wanted to pick up on one thing that you said, where you were talking about work experience. I don't know if we can do this, and I don't know if it's something that's been looked at, but if we've got people that are coming for work experience that are really keen, have we looked into whether we could offer them potentially some part-time summer job working, shadowing somebody working within the authority over the summer? I don't know if that's possible, if we're legally allowed to do that, so I was just putting that out there.
I think part of the strategy is we'll consider anything that we can where we've got a need. So, but at the moment we've got lots of need in areas where we've not previously had. So previously Marie Rowney didn't have issues about recruiting to the customer service centre. She does at the moment. Entry-level business support has never been a problem for us. It is at the moment. What we need to convey is that the council have over 450 different types of jobs. So what people might have in their mind as working for the council as being, it isn't that. There's lots of different opportunities, and what we'll be asking members of this committee is to be advocates for the employment opportunities that the council has. In terms of work experience, sometimes it's as simple as just saying, I want to come and have a chat to somebody about what opportunities there might be, or I've thought about doing something, but I really don't know what. I've heard it's interesting, but I don't know if it's for me. And we would happily support work experience there. The issue is how long you would need in terms of a taster session. Currently, we've had to develop a virtual work experience programme because we can't have people coming in and sitting next to people just now and haven't at various times over the last 20 months. So we're doing what we can, but this isn't a one-and-done strategy. It will evolve over time. So we're happy to take on board any suggestions that are made.
Thank you, Helen. Jonathan?
Thank you, Chair. And I think also just on Helen's point there, just so people know as well, if we were to employ someone who is under 16 or hasn't done GCSEs yet, there are loads of restrictions. You have to basically apply for a permit from the Borough Council, so that's where I have to go to T-cells, you get the permit, and it's just really strict on the hours you can do in the breaks. I only know because work itself, I looked into it, and literally it's very, very tight on the controls. That's why I think we focus more on work experience, because that's not work round, that's the wrong way, but it's a way to do it to actually see the job properly, rather than you've worked for half an hour, you've got to go 3 hours off, and it's really is like that. It's very strange. Just so it's, I didn't know about 2 years ago. I was looking into it properly at work. I think just to really welcome this report overall, because I think it's really important that we keep investing in our people and bringing people to the council. I think what's been said, with financial difficulties and the pandemic, it'd be very easy just to say we can't do it, and I hope people would understand that. But we know it's for the medium long-term future. And also, I think, as Jill said, not just graduates, but anyone who wants to come work for the council, whatever role or ability, has that opportunity to do so. So really welcome it, and like I say, really look forward to welcoming more people to the priority in these various schemes, and I'm sure we'll all give them the support that we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Penny?
Thank you. I've got two quite different points. So the first of all, it's a really great report, and it's obviously a vital area to be focusing on for the council. The first point comes back to the internships. Can you just reassure me that I don't know the situation with the internships and whether they're unpaid, and whether there's been an equality assessment impact on people from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds of that. I suspect there has been, but can you just reassure me? And secondly, we know there's an acute crisis in social care, particularly in the south of the county at the moment. We know we have inability to use the budget up to pay people. We know there's more money coming from the government. So can you tell me what's being done about social care, and particularly with development for people in place, to retain them and to grow their skills and to give them an ongoing path to career development? And also how you work with the private providers who are clearly struggling and ultimately failing in some cases at the moment to fulfil their contracts. Thank you.
I'll answer the question about supported interns first, because supported interns are very particularly for people with an education and health plan, and they are traineeships, they're not employment. So that's about supporting people, young people in this instance, to be work ready from the point of just travelling with them on public transport. They come with a job coach. It lasts up to 12 months. Those are unpaid, and we work with local colleges. Currently, we're working with Portland College regarding that. We don't have unpaid internships, so our Change 100 interns are paid for the time they're with us. And I can't think of any unpaid internships across the County Council. In terms of your question about the acute crisis in adult social care and health, I'll answer your final point first. As the County Council's HR department, we don't work with the private sector. There are commissioners within the service departments that work with and support, but it isn't the role of the in-house HR team to support the private sector. We've got enough supporting our own workforce. In terms of the support that we're seeking to give to the department, there are a range of measures under consideration to meet the immediate situation. There are longer term plans around recognition and reward, bearing in mind we are involved in national pay bargaining, so there is limited amounts we can do in terms of salary, but there is currently a workforce plan being developed and considered a whole range of measures in terms of retention strategies that we're due to discuss very early in the new year, so there'll be more come out about that.
I will be in margin as well at this point, okay? Thank you.
So it's just to build on that bit about the private sector in social care, because you're absolutely right, it's under extreme pressure. We've got a market management team, as you probably know, that work very closely with the private sector in adult social care and health. And one of the things we are looking at now currently is how we can support provision of those services, because if they fall over, then it's our residents that are not being supported. So we're looking very creatively at how we can support that and how we can ensure they have the capacity to continue to provide those services.
Thank you. As has already been said, and I know, Jill, you wanted to come back. Do you want to come back now, or have you finished and do you want me to?
If there's no further questions, I'll just go to the recommendations.
Okay, I'll come back in that before we go to recommendations. As has already been said, this is an excellent report. A huge amount of work has been going on in terms of trying to recruit apprentices, because we all recognise unreservedly that they and our graduates are the future of this organisation. But we face very, very difficult challenges at the moment, very, very difficult challenges. Both Marge and Jill will tell you the amount of discussions we've had as chairman and vice chairman with both of them, and the meetings we've had with both of them to try and find a way through this. It is difficult. What I'm asking you as a personnel committee is to trust us. We will deliver. We have an action plan being worked up. Jonathan and I will be speaking as chair and vice chair to Marge and Jill in the new year. With regard to an action plan, we also further ahead, we want to get into schools, to talk to schools, to understand, Marge and I have spoken about this, as to what more we could do, perhaps we haven't done in the past, in recruiting and retaining our employees of the future. Our graduates, I met with all the graduates recently, not all the graduates, sorry, most of our present bunch of cohorts recently. We wanted them to explain to us what we could do better as an organisation, and they told us. They didn't hang back, and Marge knows. They did tell us what they feel we could, how we could do better. That's exactly what you want to know, because if we've got top drawer apprentices and top drawer graduates, we want to keep them. And we want to keep, the only way we can keep them is to understand them better, and for them to understand us better. So please, trust us. We will build on this excellent report which is in front of you this afternoon. You will get a further report coming forward to you to show you what we're doing and what the action plan to do therein. Thank you. Okay, Jill?
Thank you, Chair. So the recommendations are that Personnel Committee approve the attached skills development and employment opportunities strategy at Appendix 1 and agree to receive associated action plans on the individual initiatives required for its successful delivery. And the second recommendation is to the establishment of a skills development and employment team as set out in Appendix 2 and as discussed at paragraph 30 of the report.
Thank you. Is all those in favour, if you wouldn't mind showing? Well, thank you for your support and your confidence. That's unanimous, sir. Item 5. Get my notes. I'll introduce the report formally and move the recommendations on page 33 agenda. Do I have a seconder?
Happy second, Chairman. Reserve right to speak.
Jill, it's you again.
Thank you. This is another very positive report, hopefully. It's called Developing the Nottinghamshire Way programme, and the purpose of the report is to provide members with information regarding a new leadership development and cultural change programme, where we hope to embed cultural change, which will be instrumental in the successful delivery of the refreshed priorities set out in the new council plan. And hopefully members are beginning to see a recurring theme here now about all that we're trying to do is about delivering on the priorities in the action plan, and these are different building blocks to enable us to do that. So some members may recall the Workforce Resilience and Recovery Strategy was approved by Personnel Committee in November 2020, which sought to define what the new normal for the council's employees was and sets out how we would continue to invest in our workforce to build organisational resilience during and beyond the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, I think probably in November 2020 we thought we'd be in a different position as we are today, unfortunately, but it's still relevant and it's still current. Our ambition is to develop and maintain a culture of continuous improvement to ensure that the Council maintains a working environment and a workforce which is resilient, capable, agile, responsive to current and emerging challenges. And Councillor Gowland, that goes some way to answer some of your points about recruitment and retention, albeit across our entire workforce. But doing some of these things all of the time will have a positive impact on retention ultimately. Successful cultural change will require us to look at how we work, how we lead and how we manage people to shift existing mindsets and behaviours. Leadership capability and capacity are essential to drive the required cultural change and deliver the ambitions set out in the new council plan. We will need to continue to support our workforce to meet new challenges and to exploit the opportunities created by the cross-cutting transformation programmes. But this is within a context of potential changes to our governance arrangements, the ongoing impact of COVID-19, new hybrid working arrangements and digital developments, as well as continuing national and local pressures on budgets and many of our services. In order to support sustained cultural change, the Developing the Nottinghamshire Way programme has been considered and progressed to the cross-council work of the Workforce Resilience and Recovery Group, which is a group chaired by Marge. The purpose of the programme is to further develop the key attributes and skills we need our leaders and managers to demonstrate to underpin the delivery of the council plan and secure a shift in culture to reflect the new set of corporate values and beliefs. And one of the things that the group has considered is every department had its own set of values and behaviours. Happily, they weren't wildly different, as you would expect of the 4 departments of a county council. What we've tried to do is to draw them together in some kind of consensus, that these are what we want to reflect within the Developing the Nottinghamshire Way. The expectation is that these will identify how we want to operate, how we do business and deliver services, and work collaboratively with both internal and external partners and stakeholders. So we have done leadership development programmes previously, notably in 2014, and again we refreshed that in 2019. But again, and within adult social care and health, they've had their own rolling programme for the last 12 to 18 months, which is owning and driving performance. That will sit alongside. It's not the same thing. It's important to stress it's not the same thing, but there are elements of it that will inform and enhance what we're trying to do across the leadership development programme. As ever, we always find it helpful to have a set of guiding principles, and these are really important because these are what the cross-council group have come up with to develop buy-in. So we want to adopt and develop a distributive leadership model to lead cultural change. Really important to people that we build on what we already have, because there were many positive comments made about the existing elements of leadership development training. We need it to have a cross-council approach because we know that we cannot operate in silos and develop things that only work in one part of the organisation. It's really important that we engage with managers and employees at every level of the organisation, and we want to focus on people changing their behaviour, changing their mindsets, but also to create or develop, because I believe we do have a culture of trust in many parts of the organisation, so we need to develop that further. We want to create ownership and empower other people to act, but also to be accountable for their actions. Really important to focus on delivering outcomes and using existing mechanisms for ongoing review, such as the employee supervision and the performance and development review processes. The programme, it's hoped, will launch at the end of January, but we will keep that under review because clearly if the continuing situation develops, we need to be mindful of the capacity of people to take on board a new leadership development programme, but we can be selective and targeted as to how we launch that. It's intended to run between 18 months and 24 months and to be delivered to service directors, group and team managers. That's an approximate cohort of 450 people across the council. And it will be mandatory, so people will be supported and encouraged to attend. Also important that we recognise that there is a whole group of people who aspire to be leaders within the organisation who may not fall within this cohort, and we'll be developing a further programme to incorporate those. What we're seeking to do is there are some elements of this programme that will be open to aspirant managers to attend, because I think that's really important. And it was one of the things when the programme was discussed at corporate leadership team that they were particularly keen that it was included. But it is specifically for existing leaders and managers. But we also want to look wider because we know that we're increasingly involved in system leadership, so that would be true of colleagues in adults with health partners, but also at a time we're seeking to work with boroughs and districts, we might want to open up some elements of the programme to officers from those cohorts. Also, differently from other times, we want to offer elected members some elements of the programme as well. And at Appendix 1, you will see a high-level view of what that might look like. It's not got the detail of what will be involved in every part of the different modules, but it gives you a high-level overview of what is intended. Running parallel, because cultural change doesn't just happen with an ad hoc leadership development programme, will be a number of corporate activities to engage with employees on the council plan and how it will be delivered. Some of the activities and how they fit together, we call this a jigsaw diagram, but can be seen at Appendix 2. And you see that there's a whole range of activities of how things fit together. So no one thing is happening in isolation of another. We know that to be successful, we will need to have effective communication and engagement with all our employees, including frontline workers. And this will be essential to delivering sustainable cultural change, including the development of new behaviours and ways of working. A report has previously been brought to this committee with a draft employee communication and engagement strategy, and that is being further developed at the moment, and this will underpin the successful delivery of the programme, seeking to encourage a more bottom-up approach and more effective cross-council communication, collaboration and partnership working. The programme enables us to empower our leaders and managers to support and enable our employees to successfully deliver the priorities set out in the council plan. The objectives of the Leadership Development Programme and the wider Developing the Nottinghamshire Way include those bullet points listed in paragraph 12. We could choose to do nothing and just continue to deliver ad hoc elements of leadership and management development, but it's felt that a more cohesive programme of learning inputs build on what's already in place and is considered the most effective way of delivering cultural shift necessary to meet changing priorities that the Council currently faces. So the reason for recommendation, the programme will enable the Council to continue to develop its leaders and managers, equipping them with the necessary skills and attributes required to deliver the latest Council plan. It's intended to create and sustain a positive, inclusive culture that reflects all the collective values and behaviours identified as being important in the discovery work undertaken through the Workforce Resilience and Recovery Group. There is obviously a cost to any development programme, and you will see at paragraph 17 how this breaks down. So looking at 125k per annum, bearing in mind it's a 2-year programme, that equates roughly to £550 per head. And if you think you can go on 1 day's training and that costs £800, so to deliver a leadership development programme with 5 component parts represents significant value for money, and we're doing that through working with existing providers and using in-house coaching models as well. So I think I can understand that might be of concern, but it does represent really effective, good value for money. I'll pause there, Chair, and take any questions.
Thank you, Jill. Jonathan?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think just to say that it's really welcome that we're bringing the support forward, because we have to make sure we keep investing in our team. The point they raised earlier about vacancies and recruitment and retention, I mean, when you show you're investing in people, one, they're more likely to stay, but two, when people looking to join, they see that we invest in training. I think it's definitely a USP, especially at the moment, because a lot of companies will be cutting back on training down to the sheer cost, if nothing else at the moment, and short-term thinking. So really is welcome. And of course, these people are our managers, so they are going to be, it's going to give them better skills to also help train and develop their own teams. So we're going to get, so that investment's going to be far wide-reaching. And actually about the financial impact, I don't mind saying, when I first heard about it for the report as a 250k, I thought, what the, well, we're training in Barbados, but when actually, when you, like I say, with the breakdown, and I bring a lot of training providers for work, and what Jill says is completely spot on. You're talking £800, £900 for a day's training for a few members of your team. So actually, it is good value for money. Although that figure, when you first see it, does send shivers down the spine. If Richard was here, he'd probably be saying the same thing. But good job he isn't. But like I say, I think I would get that assurance. I do think it's a good value for money overall, and we will see that back in over the period. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to ask any questions? Please, Penny.
Just a really quick one. Based on that, actually, I noticed it's coming out of contingency, it says, as I understand it. And I just wondered whether that's a risk at the moment, what else the contingency would be for, because presumably there are risks ahead at this precise moment, given what's going on.
I trust in our Section 151 officer that there is money available, but clearly if money had to be diverted for something of greater priority, that would be considered and probably brought back to this committee.
I think it's very important, and I'm sure you would agree with me, Penny, because this is something we've been talking about earlier on this afternoon, investing for the future, training our managers in the way they need to be trained. That's not to say for one moment they don't have the skills. It's refreshing the skills. And as it says also in the report in paragraph 8, recognise we also need to develop the further input for aspirational managers, and this will form part of a future programme. Investment in the people we've got, and the next cohort of apprentices, strokes, graduates as well. So I welcome the report very much. So, Jill, back to you.
Thank you, Chair. So therefore, it's recommended that members support the development of the Developing the Nottinghamshire Way programme and agree to receive further updates on the progress being made 6 months after its launch. And secondly, to approve the funding of up to 125k per annum over a 2-year period to design and deliver the programme.
Thank you, Jill. For the recommendations before you, all those in favour, please show. Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. I assume that's unanimous. Is that, Elizabeth, sorry, were you voting in favour? Thank you, Elizabeth. That's great. Unanimous, thank you. In that case, item 6. If I just introduce the report formally, move the recommendation page 41 of the agenda. Have a second?
Have a second, Chairman. Reserve right to speak.
Jill, you'll be very pleased to know you've got a break. Luke, it's all yours. And welcome to the committee, by the way, Luke.
Thank you very much. So this report in front of you is the communications marketing staffing structure. It sets out the reasons why we're asking you to support recommendations. I'll give you a bit of background and context as to why the report
Luke.
brought before you. Since the new administration started. Oh, sorry. I thought I projected quite well without the microphone.
There's a lesson there, Luke. There's a lesson there.
Thank you. Yes, sorry. So yes, I'm bringing this report to the committee in order to seek their approval to support the new staffing structure that has been set out in the appendix. So the background to the report is that following the elections in May 2021, the leadership of the organisation wanted to take a stronger, more robust approach to communications. They gave us a clear brief. We sought to review the existing resource we had, and it was recognised that we needed to strengthen that resource, particularly in some parts of the team. So we commissioned an external review. That review sought to engage with and consult with members, as well as senior leadership, as well as members of the team, as well as the media. And they came up with a series of recommendations, and those recommendations, which are set out in this report, included a dedicated communications, media function within the team that was stronger, but also that we take a more strategic approach to the way we plan our communications as well, and a range of other recommendations that were set out. But the recommendation is very simply to approve an increase in the authorised staffing structure that the communications function will have to support the organisation. And it's recognised in this report as well the value of having a strong communications and marketing function, both to the leadership, to the organisation, but also the importance of engagement and communication with our residents to ensure that they're aware of what our priorities are and making sure that they're aware of the direction we want to travel in, but also having a resilient and strong resource in place to enable us to deliver against the priorities of the organisation. So part of the report sort of sets out what the externally commissioned report and review found, but quite crucially, it sets out a recommendation that we increase the authorised staffing establishment by 2 FTEs, as you can see set out, and is also in the appendix. So I'll pause there and ask if there are any questions.
Thank you very much, Luke. He's learning. Jono.
Chairman, thank you very much. I'll remove the mask and hopefully I'll remember to put it back on. It's exciting, isn't it? We're moving with the times. It's about time we're moving with the times. We have a leader who I think everybody knows his name, and if he doesn't after this, they hopefully will. We need to start communicating more using media, using our own teams, and I think this will allow us to do it. I'm excited. I'm really excited for the future. The one thing I get constantly is we only hear from you during elections. And I think now that the county council can tell people what we're doing, communicate what we're doing, the leader can tell people what we're doing, hopefully that will stop and we'll be able to say, actually, you've heard from us all the time. So, yet again, very excited. I'm looking forward to this and not a question. So,
thank you, Jonah. Helen?
Thank you, Chair. I don't think I can support this, Chair. Don't get me wrong, I agree that communication is a big part of what the council does. But I think we do we do it reasonably effectively at the moment. I think the area that we struggle to communicate with and speak to is, we've discussed this at policy a few times as well, it's the people that aren't on social media, it's the people that don't have access to that sort of stuff. And this isn't going to fix that problem, in my opinion. And I think for me, it's a lot of money to add to the budget. I know we're using it from other savings made elsewhere, but for me, it's a lot of money to go into communication when residents, I think, would rather us spend it in a different way rather than finding different ways to talk to them. They'd rather see something benefit from it rather than having someone trying to talk to them in a way that they're already being talked to, if that makes sense. Sorry, I can't support it, Chair.
Thank you, Helen. Appreciate your thoughts. Penny, got you next.
Thank you. First of all, I have a number of specific questions. So, under paragraph 5, we'd like to know which external agency. Under paragraph 11, we'd like to know which upper tier council. Under paragraph 18, we'd like a bit more explanation of how this money is going to be magicked from within existing budgets. I would like to absolutely, fully support Helen's comment about non-digitally enabled residents. They are the major people we cannot reach as councillors, and as the council, I suspect, certainly as councillors, I know that. I have to disagree with Jono, sorry.
Be careful there.
Because residents don't say to me they haven't heard from the council. They say to me they haven't heard from the politicians at election time. I really hope this isn't about politics. I trust it's not about politics. So I think residents would really like to know what communications the council needs to make. Now, we know one communication the council needs to make. The council needs to make communications about the need to recruit to social care. Sorry to be a broken record. And we need to be doing that for both the council and for private providers because they are failing to do this. So can you tell me how much of this money is going to be, or how much of this resource at least is going to be used to tackle the immediate problem in social care as well, please? Thank you.
There's a tough baptism for you, Luke. A few questions for you to get ahead of.
I've managed to make the microphone work this time. Thank you, Councillor Cowlin. And yeah, I appreciate and respect all your views. Firstly, point 5, the external agency that was commissioned is called Westco. They are a leading communications and marketing strategy consultancy. So they were the company that we engaged to do the review, and they were the ones who came up with the recommendations. Point 11, which was their finding, they did some research as part of their review, and they looked at comparable organisations of the same size, upper tier authorities. I think they looked at Leicestershire, they looked at Derbyshire, they looked at Staffordshire, similar size organisations to Nottinghamshire, and there was an average. There was a bottom end and a top end, and they came up with the average number, which is what's set out here as 22.3. So that's the average size of a communications and marketing team for an upper tier county council, so to speak. And the final point was the cost. So so again, the costs were met from within existing budgets, from savings that I'd identified from within our existing budget, and a bulk of that has come from the document services and mail and print services, as well as the communications and marketing side as well, by making some savings from systems, subscriptions, but also by improvements in the print and mail services that we managed to secure during the pandemic as well. So that's where the savings were identified from. Of course you can.
Absolutely, yeah, of course.
Because that sort of rings alarm bells with what Helen said, because of course if we're transferring, I don't know what that means, but it suggests to me less post, which is obviously good for the environment and good for saving money, but potentially bad for reaching those who are not digitally enabled.
So no, these were more about system changes. So, for example, we were able to our print and mail services were more utilised during the pandemic, so they were able to receive further income from those services, which helps to bolster those budgets within that service, which made revenue available for us to use towards these costs.
I know he does. Of course, Benny. Yeah.
Finally, the question about recruitment.
Yes. Oh, sorry, could you repeat the question about recruitment?
To what extent would these posts be related to recruitment, which seems to be the crisis at the moment?
Okay, so the improvements to the communications and marketing team will provide our ability and capacity to support all departments within the council. So, for example, at the moment we're supporting a recruitment campaign for adult social care to try and drive more people to work in adult social care services. So the service and the team will support the whole range of services across the council as it does now. All this does is it strengthens our ability to do that, gives us the capacity that we need in order to do more of that for more of the time. So we're absolutely focused on supporting Melanie Brooks and her teams with communications and engagement and marketing activity to support their campaigns, but also by supporting them through media management. We receive an awful lot of inquiries from the media and they need managing, so we take that pressure off the service director by handling that for them so that they can get on and focus on the role of actually delivering frontline adult social care. So we feel we add enormous value in that role, and so this, what we're asking committee to recommend today, will strengthen our ability and our capacity to deliver that.
Thank you. I'll bring March in this point before we come back to those who would other questions.
So just a couple of points I'd want to reinforce actually from what Lucas said. So the first thing I want to be crystal clear about is we're not asking for any extra money. So we're doing this from within existing resources. So I want to be really clear, it's not about having extra money to spend on communications. Your question about kind of how does that work, where does that come from? And that's by efficiencies, selling more services in our print service, things like that to generate within our existing budget. So I want to be really clear, it's not about extra money on communications. I think that is really important. The other bit I'd want to pick up is kind of a bit of an implied thing in the conversation that's gone on so far, really. I'm not aware, it says in here anywhere, this is only about using social media and digital means of communication. Actually, if you think about the conversations we had at Policy Committee and full council about the council plan and how we want to have that ongoing engagement and narrative with our residents, we actually need more different resources working differently to make sure we can communicate on all channels to all of our residents, including our hard-to-reach residents, and that it's an ongoing narrative. It's not a one and done. We don't put out a post on Twitter and, you know, job done sort of thing. So I really think that having this capacity is essential to enable us to deliver on the things we've already talked about and agreed to do in the way we've already talked about and agreed to do it. So I think that's really important that we just reinforce those couple of points.
Thank you, Marge. Callum, you've been very patient. Thank you.
No problem. I think you've stole my thunder there.
Sorry.
Because I was definitely going to mention, since the elections in May, I think we've definitely seen a step up in terms of the communications and how well it's been doing. It's actually been noted in communication with residents. So, for example, in Bassetlaw, we've had a bit of an issue with school places. And recently a post went out explaining how the preference system worked. And that was a very useful piece of information. And lots of people were saying, oh, this should have been here earlier. And I definitely think if we go down this route of being more proactive with our communications, either through social media, but also through things like the Big Not survey, which went out to all lots of residents for paper form, that's the online form, I definitely think it will move us up and actually go a long way to actually assisting residents, because that's what we're here for. We're here for the residents. And if the residents don't know what services we're offering or how the services actually work, then I don't think we're doing our job properly. Therefore, I think if this report goes ahead, I think we'll definitely move towards actually assisting residents in a lot more positive way than what we're currently doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. John, I know you wanted to come back quickly, didn't you?
Did, Chairman. It's not about being political. It's not. It's about our leader of the council, who at the moment so happens to be Councillor Ben Bradley, being able to get out there and tell people the great work we're doing. And for the council themselves and being able to tell people the work we're doing and what we need help with and this and that. I was only saying in the last meeting, me and my little girl, it was either YouTube or it was Facebook, we're watching Mr. Beast, and then all of a sudden we got an advert come up, and we hate adverts, but it was a Nottinghamshire County Council advert about adoption. So it's moving with the times. It's being able to tell people the services we do. And it is, as you know, as a councillor, it's not the council, it's you, the council. People don't distinguish between district council, county council, councillors, and what the council work does. And I think by this agenda item and by us being able to do more, we're saying what the council does, we're saying we do this service, we do that service, we're saying we've got this money from government, and it allows people to know more what we're doing, and it can only be a positive, and that's why I'm excited about it. It's not about politics, it's about helping people.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, I think, Marge, you hit on a few bits I was going to cover. I think I'm quite surprised with some of the comments made, because I think we should actually celebrate the fact that we're finding efficiency in some of the services we're doing and can put more money back into what we should be doing, which is communicating with residents. And we talk about, some discussion about politics. It's not about that. Before this item, I went on, I hate Twitter, but I went and looked on it and saw some of the comments made. So people who are already literate on media, and some of the questions they're asking, going, why are you asking that? It's quite obvious. It's on our website, Facebook. So that's showing that either we're not communicating as we should be, or we need to look at different ways, because otherwise we're just literally having double a resource going into the matter, putting out messages, and also having someone on the other end having to answer these points. And the fact about where we are with the communication marketing team, I think we have to be honest and say it wasn't where it needed to be at the start of administration. It's been admitted to that, and Luke's done the great work in showing what he needs to be able to deliver to communicate with residents. And I think we all know now that there are so many different communication streams out there, not just traditional media, which we still support with Counter Life and other things, but I thought TikTok was type of mint, but apparently it's a big thing on social media. Everything else, I'm too old for that at my age. I think Cam's the only one to get away with it. But what I'm saying is there's so many different ways now that Luke needs to identify that we communicate with residents, because there's people from various different ages to get involved, and we need to make sure we are equipped to be able to deal with them. And especially, for example, at the communities meeting this morning, we talked about the great work we're doing around the amount of grants that are going out there in terms of local community fund, about what we're council investing in terms of school voucher programme, about the various resources out there for people low incomes to get there. We need to make sure we're communicating that out. And, I don't want to look, I gave you some more work earlier. Like I said, we need to be actually making sure how we are going out there, and that's going to be various different communication streams. So we have to make sure that we're investing in this department to make sure we can go out there and communicate to people. So, and I think the point that was raised about look at comparative councils, it shows that we did actually not have the right amount of people in the team. If we are still actually below the average of quite a few of our similar organisations, shows that actually we've got probably room we need to expand in the future. But let's go with this structure for now, see how we can go on there. I'm sure we are much more efficient than our neighbours, so our team will be able to do it on the basis we're giving. But we should actually be celebrating the fact we want to communicate with our residents in as many different ways as possible in a positive way, because the point raised about people saying if they are not sure what we do as council, and we see it all the time about, it's you haven't collected my bins, well, I don't know it's borough, I don't know it's county. We have to make sure we get that message out there, because all it's doing is creating a negative image of our council, and perhaps not our fault, or and people don't actually understand why. So I really would ask people to reconsider their objection to this, to actually look at see the positives in here, and we can move forwards and to push this through. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Pauline.
5 minutes ago, I had this beautifully phrased, and of course, it's now gone. Except that Jonathan has just summarised it. Let's see how it goes, he said, and then we can adjust it. And I think that was my worry, that someone's decreed that 2 is enough, but maybe it should be we don't need any more, and we can just make more economies. These economies of scale and whatever could be done, and we don't need the 2. Nobody really knows until you get and try it. But as Jonathan said, we could test this, and I hope that whoever's running it is going to test it and see which way to go. I mean, if you've had the nous to come up with a system and what you want, you should have the nous to adjust it when you're in the middle of doing it. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pauline. Helen, anyone to come back?
Yeah, just really a quick point, Chair. I didn't mean to take anything away about the work that you've done with the savings, because I think that is absolutely fantastic, the work that you've done with that. And in this day and age, savings are a really important thing for councils. It's just my view that this isn't the right thing to use those savings for, when we could use it on other things that I think would benefit the residents of Nottinghamshire more than some communications officers. So it's nothing personal, nothing. I appreciate what you've done. I just don't think it's the right thing to be doing at this moment. Thank you.
Okay, a couple of things if I could introduce here. Earlier on, I mentioned the British Deaf Association and the work we've started to do with them, and there's a lot more to do. Communication. They've told us we're not communicating with them. And they're right, we're not. So the plan is to work with our qualities officer to develop a plan with the British Deaf Association through our comms team, see how can we do it better through our customer service team. Not, Helen, I'm not knocking your view, I never do that. I'm just putting out something else out there for you to think about, that's all I'm saying. Earlier on, I also mentioned graduates. We said how important graduates are to this organisation, as well as our apprenticeships. With the help of Sid, one of our previous cohorts, we've done an excellent blog, communicating. When we come, as we will be soon, for the next branch, next group of graduates that we'll be recruiting, communication is out there, it will be out there. We've done a video with our graduates, it's going to be out there again. We're selling ourselves. We can't do any of this without the support of a communications team. Now, I'm not in no way trying to change your mind. You'll make your own mind up, and you probably have. But we'll make you an offer after this meeting, whatever your decision is today. If you want further information, come and talk to Luke and myself. We're happy to talk to you outside the meeting, after the meeting, early next year. It's not twisting anyone's arm. We just want you to understand, because I think you probably would. I know you well enough, Helen. No, you'd want to understand what it is we're going to spend the money on. Thank you, Helen. Anyone else? In which case, back to you, Luke, with the recommendation.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, so I move the recommendation, which is to approve the new staffing structure of the communications and marketing function as set out in Appendix 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. All those in favour, please show. Those against? Thank you. No, noted, Sarah? Yeah. Thank you very much indeed. The work programme, which doesn't, all it needs to be formally introduced, which is on page 46.
So,
last March.
yep, so work
Please.
programme taking us up to the obviously new governance arrangements which we've been talking about this morning. You'll see that I have added into the March programme the review of recruitment practice and procedures following the resolution at full council on the 25th of November. So I just wanted to draw your attention to that, really.
Thank you very much. We don't need a vote on it, just to make sure we're happy with that. All happy with that? Okay. No, I won't stop the broadcast now, because I'll say, wish you all a very happy Christmas. Stay safe.
Thank you, Chairman.
Now you can stop the broadcast.